been falling all my life and people wonder why I'm down to earth.
This is Adversity University.
If you waiting for somebody to feel sorry for you, then you failed already.
Success is best of those who've been grounded first.
Cause ain't nobody gonna feel sorry for you.
Now what are you willing to do?
The only thing that separates a winner from a loser is perseverance.
And this is Adversity University.
All right. Welcome back to another episode, another edition, another segment of the Art of Growing Through. And we're going through the art of growing through trauma. This is what we're speaking about today. This is what we're discussing today. And this is the second episode of what we started as it relates to discussing the art of growing through trauma. Last episode, we went over defining the different types of trauma. We went over how trauma affects the brain and the body. We went over the common misconceptions about trauma. We also went over the importance of acknowledging and validating personal experiences, which I think we dove pretty deep in our own personal experiences. Got a little personal, right? We touched on a lot of good stuff, but most importantly, we was able to educate and inform the people about trauma and what that looks like, so that they can get a better understanding. Now, in the effort to continue to help people understand trauma, this episode is titled, now the whole series is the art of growing through trauma, but now we're about to discuss just the path to healing. And before we actually got on to this, but before I even continue, let me introduce the counselor extraordinaire, Nally Alexander. Nally, how you doing today?
Hey, Cody, I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the accolade. Thank you.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to have you. Always a pleasure. So now, like I was just discussing, we're going to get into the path of healing. And what I was going to segue into was just kind of what we were discussing before we actually started recording, because on the path to healing, that's it's broad but specific, right? We're healing from something. Right, so we have to understand how to heal and understand how to heal from trauma specifically. We have to understand what trauma is, and what the topic that we're going to discuss today is the stages of healing from trauma, the role of therapy and therapeutic relationships, coping strategies and techniques for managing trauma symptoms, and the importance of self-compassion and patience in the healing process. So what I was about to discuss is what we was talking about just the different stages of healing, right? And there's a lot of stages to a lot of things, right? Most commonly we hear the 5 stages of grief, in which that's for another day. But there's also stages of healing, right? And I'm not the trauma expert. However, we were discussing a lot of that. And then as we discussed the different stages of trauma, I then started to realize how triggers affect trauma and a lot of those to kind of, be rebirthed, for lack of better terms. And that person got to kind of sit through those stages in order to be able to heal. So let me say this. Let's talk about, because your famous term is detaching triggers away from trauma.
Yes.
And once we started to discuss the different stages of trauma, it started even make more sense to me why triggers affect trauma and why it pulls it out and why the person is the way they are when that trauma presents itself, right? So let's just talk about it real quick. So the different stages of healing, right now, I'm gonna throw the alley to you real quick so that you can identify the stages of healing, the stages of trauma, and we can just kind of talk about them as it relates to the triggers and what that looks like and why it affects the person, right? So without further ado, Nally, can you give us just a quick breakdown of the stages of healing from trauma so that we can kind of discuss, that part?
Sure. So from the research that I've done, there are 3 stages of healing from trauma, and they're pretty broad stages. I'm sure that there are other sub steps that can go underneath, but first one is safety and stabilization, because when we're walking around having experienced trauma, 9 times out of 10, pretty much 10 times out of 10, we do not feel safe. At some point earlier in our lives, some action, some event had us conclude that this world and the people in our world are not safe, and that we inside of our body are unsafe. So first step of healing is creating a safe and stable environment. And that can be the therapeutic space. That has to be safe. The therapeutic relationship, it has to be safe. And when I say safe and stable, I can think all day as a therapist that my office is safe and I'm safe, but healing from trauma doesn't happen until my client feels safe. So it could take 1 session, it could take 5 sessions, it could take several sessions, but they have to feel safe and be stable. So that's the first stage. Second stage is remembrance and mourning. And so when an individual feels safe, then they feel like they can remember and start to actually feel some of the responses, the emotional responses of the trauma that they've been through. I'm sure you've heard of several times where people like remember things that they were never even conscious of that have happened to them, earlier on in life. And so that's what happens. The trauma comes up, it surfaces, and sometimes without the trigger. A lot of times we think that, we remember our trauma because we're triggered. Some people remember their trauma because they feel safe. Their brain is like, okay, we can do this now. We can look at this trauma. You feel safe. And I'm sure you've had clients that they're crying for no reason and they just don't know what's going on. They just feel crazy. It's the trauma that's trying to surface because they're at a stage in their life where they feel safe. So now they're remembering what happened. They're able to put words to it. And then they grieve what they lost as a result of the trauma. They grieve the life that they could have had, but they didn't. And that they have to now accept that it's just not going to be that way anymore. So that is mourning. That's hurtful. That's deep. And finally, the third stage is reconnecting. We know that we are healed from trauma, at least closer to wholeness and healing from trauma, when we are reconnected to ourselves. When we experience trauma, we get disconnected from ourselves. All of a sudden, not only is everything else unsafe, we feel unsafe. So if you meet a lot of empaths, empaths will throw out their energy to make sure that everybody else's energy is safe before they actually can settle in and to relax. Empaths typically, if they feel that somebody else is unbalanced or, emotional, we try to fix them, make sure they're okay so that we can be okay. And that's a byproduct of having experienced trauma because of that disconnect. Oftentimes also people, want to make sure, once again, codependency sometimes can be an outcome of trauma where we're, once again, people pleasing, making sure everybody else is happy, but we're not happy. We don't even know what happy is. We don't know when we're hungry, tired, sleepy, angry because of that profound disconnect. Back to the final stage of healing from trauma, we reconnect to our body. We become reacquainted with who we are inside of ourselves, how we feel because what about our body is telling us, and how to relate to ourselves, love ourselves, and how to relate to other people and love them.
No, that was good. I definitely appreciate that insight, especially coming from that aspect with trauma. We definitely have to learn how to understand that everything is a process.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of that we go through is a process. I don't care what it is. Whether you learn how to tie your shoes, ride a bike, cook food, do homework, you know what I mean? Work a job, even when you think you know it all, and you're in an area that you think that you understand, it's still a process to adapt. So any and everything that you go through, ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand that there's a process to it. And that all you have to do is follow the steps. Follow the steps and sit in that space. Sit with yourself, gather some understanding, sit with your thoughts so that you can work on just doing and being better.
Right.
So now, in the same lane of talking about, trauma, I do want to, and the stages of healing through trauma, I did want to touch on the triggers, right? And just kind of how the trigger affects that actual trauma, and how to identify an actual trigger. Because I know we'll throw trigger in here every now and then, but I just think it's important to be able to elaborate a little bit on what an actual trigger is. We don't have to sit on it forever, but at least give a little tidbit on what an actual trigger is and how that trigger pulls out the trauma in an individual.
So the trigger, in my words, would be the way that our emotions are hijacked in a particular situation. Our emotions hijack our bodies in a particular situation and catapult is forward, but pulls us back to the actual memory of the trauma. So when we're reacting emotionally, we're actually psychologically in that space of trauma. We're unable to make the difference between what is happening right here and right now and what happened back then. And so what I often tell my clients is a phrase, and we might get into this a little bit later on, one of the tools, is to tell yourself that is not what this is, so that the brain can separate the events and so that your emotion, your nervous system can regulate and calm down when you realize, okay, no, like that's not what this is. On so many levels, right? So many levels, so many kinds of trauma, but essentially it's the emotional pulling back to the past into the trauma experience.
Good stuff. No, good stuff. I definitely appreciate that. This is a good segue to even talk about just the role of therapy, right? So let's just say, for example, I'm an individual. I've experienced trauma. We all have, right? But I'm an individual. I experienced trauma, and I'm looking to seek out therapy. But I know, the negative stigma that's associated with therapy is preventing me from even trying to take the first step. But I don't even have a clear understanding of what therapy is and the role of therapy and just that therapeutic relationship, what that's supposed to look like and feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to me, as a person that don't know anything, can you explain to me what the role of therapy is and how important the therapeutic relationship is?
So the role of therapy is to actually walk you into the space and accompany you in the space that you wouldn't otherwise do with anybody else. The therapeutic relationship has to be a safe relationship. And here's the thing. You can meet a therapist and not feel comfortable. So the therapeutic space and the therapeutic relationship has to be comfortable. And if it's not, for whatever reason, then that's not a good match. It's not a good fit for you. And it's okay for you to find another therapist, kind of shop around, which can be a process also, especially someone that's having experienced trauma and can't trust people or just won't trust or just doesn't trust people. That could be a process in and of itself. Know that all of the therapists have been licensed. They have been endorsed by the state that you live in. So if they hurt you, and we've all taken a vow as therapists of non-malfeasance, like that big word means that we will do everything in our power to not hurt you. So it behooves us when you walk into our office or when you turn on that video screen, whatever, it behooves us to handle you with care, because we know that whatever you tell us is a sensitive topic. We know that there may be some fragile parts of the conversation. And so we have to present a safe space. Also knowing that the therapeutic relationship involves confidentiality. No matter what you tell me, it's going to stay in the room, right? Many of us therapists, most of us therapists became therapists because we deeply care about you. We want to heal. We want to see you happy and thrive. And for a lot of us, you're going to see that in our eyes. You're going to see that in our disposition. You're going to see it. Maybe sometimes you might tell us something that will make us want to cry. You'll see the water well up in our eyes. Some of us will let a tear drop, but we are not going to make our response about us. It's always going to be about you. The time that we spend together is always going to be about what you want to talk about in that moment. The therapeutic relationship can be challenging sometimes, okay? Because when we've experienced trauma, sometimes we come to conclusions and perspectives about the world that just doesn't match reality. And so sometimes the therapeutic relationship will challenge some things, some of the belief systems that you had, and offer you a different belief system that will help you get closer to your goal of healing.
That was good stuff. I'm gonna just let that sink in real quick.
All right.
Let that sink in.
Cool.
So for the most part, do no harm, essentially, is how we operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do no harm, right? So if we're not, experts on a particular topic that you're going through, for us to have you sit in front of us and try to take you through something that we have no knowledge over, that's actually doing harm. So the right thing for that therapist to do is to refer you to another therapist that may be strong in that area. Right? Confidentiality is very, very, very important. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the fears that a lot of people have, is that I don't know this person, this is a stranger. I'm not about to just tell this person all my business. I'm not just gonna open up. You know what I mean? And that runs people away. So I'm gonna say that again. We are required to keep what we discuss confidential, right? Unless you are a threat to yourself, a threat to harm yourself, someone else, right? You say I'm having feelings of suicidal ideation, I plan to, kill myself. Okay, now we have to report that, right? If things like child abuse and things like that, and we have to report that.
Yes.
Anything else that does not have to do with self-harm or harm someone else, we're required to keep those things confidential. And that's important for you to know that, so that you can take the first step to be able to sit in front of an actual licensed therapist and be vulnerable enough to express what it is that you're going through, what you went through, and try to get to the place that you actually want to be. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. I think there was something else that I wanted to add, but you hit it. You hit it on the head, Cody.
Okay. Well, if it come back to you, just let me know. I'll close my big mouth, right?
All right.
So the next thing I just kind of want to get into is just different, coping strategies and techniques for managing trauma symptoms, right? So, we talked about triggers, right? We talked about what the trauma, approximately 3 stages of, healing from trauma is. Right? We spoke about those things, but I do think it's important to just, briefly touch on just different types of coping strategies that will help someone when having trauma symptoms, when they don't even really know what it is that they're going through, how to deal with it in a space. Because if the person is hearing this for the first time and they've never been in therapy, they can probably identify with a lot of things that we're speaking to, but they don't know how to deal with it, right? And I think us as clinicians, and with Adversity University being a mental health education and life skill platform, I think it's important for us to at least give them a little bit so they can understand, okay, well, I am kind of going through this right here. I am kind of going through that right there. How do I deal with that? You know what I mean? Because it's not just about scrolling on Instagram, Googling something. We got real world experience, dealing with individuals personally, professionally, and we want to be able to give you the most effective coping strategies that will help you kind of get to the next day.
The very first strategy, the very first point of reference needs to be breath work. Okay. Learning how to breathe deeply. I am one to hold my breath. I've been holding my breath for a long time. My shoulders hiked, holding my breath, just tense, ready for whatever might take me off guard. And so just learning how to let the shoulders drop, just learning how to breathe, just learning how to release is paramount in coping. Learning how to sleep. I mean, and be vulnerable in the sleep. Some people stay awake so that they don't, so that they can be alert and not let anything happen to them. So learning about your environment, how safe you are in your environment, which also happens when you're breathing. So there's the breath work, there's grounding, which is what I pretty much described, where you describe where you are and how you feel about where you are. You're using all your senses to connect to where you are, right? We call that grounding. Also, we want to journal, because a lot of us that have experienced trauma, like I said earlier, we feel like the world around us isn't safe. So why are we going to talk? Why are we going to share? Why are we going to allow ourselves to be vulnerable and transparent? Everything is in our head. We stay overthinking and not saying very much or saying too much about nothing. So and trying to solve problems in our mind, right? So we journal, and that's a form of release. I always tell my clients that when you're journaling, it's not an essay. It's not for grammatical etiquette. You are brain dumping, as we call. We just writing. We have nothing else that comes to your mind. You just close the book, turn the page the next day. We're not reading the past entries either. I've had clients say that I don't want to journal because when I read the last one, it just made me sad all over again. I'm like, what are you reading it for? Like, it's not for reread at all. It's just for brain dump. Turn the page, right again. Also, strength training. Strength training is helpful also from a neurological space, but also from a psychological space. There's a difference. It actually changes the brain function and the brain shape. Psychological, it changes the way you think. There's a sense of empowerment that comes with strength training, a sense of connecting to yourself that comes when you're actually, you're breathing out, you're doing the thing, you're lifting, and it actually helps with the symptoms. So I've given you, I think, 3 or 4 to start off with, but once you're able to practice those skills, you'll find yourself more aware, a lot more at ease, and able to sit in a space. I remembered what I was going to say about what you experience in trauma and trigger. So many of us, when we've been experienced trauma, we adopt anxiety or impatience it as one of the symptoms. Everything has to be done right now. And if it's not done right away, become very impatient, very irritable, because the trauma taught us that if we don't step and do the work, it's just, something bad is going to happen. No, we just have to learn patience, sit back, you're okay, and move forward with the power that you have. So fast forward back to this part right here. It's a matter of, the tools and the skills. You learn how to be patient. You learn how to communicate in a way that reflects that you are here currently in the present. And I
like that. I'm sorry, I ain't mean to cut you off, but I'll
no.
definitely hop in. Anybody listening, if you're getting something, if you're getting something out of this, please like, share with somebody that can also get something out of it. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers fast, so press that subscribe button, and please also comment. And ask us any questions that you may want to know. It's important for us to know what you want to know so that we can give you what you want to get, right?
Right.
And if you just tune in, I'm licensed therapist Cody Martin, along with Natalie Alexander, and we're discussing the path to healing from the series, The Art of Growing Through, right? And we're doing The Art of Growing Through Trauma. And one of the last things I kind of want to go over with you, Natalie, is just kind of discussing the importance of self-compassion and patience. I think you just kind of touched on that, right? Self-compassion and patience through the healing process. Again, trauma is a big thing, and it's not a fast thing to get over. It's a lifelong journey. But I think that if we're educated and understand what trauma is, what triggers is, different coping skills, then we'll be more prone to sit in that space and go through the actual healing process. I'm going to tell you firsthand, actually going through the healing process as it relates to trauma is a very, very uncomfortable situation in the beginning. Very.
Yes.
It's extremely uncomfortable, but when you get to the other side, it's like, oh man, I'm so glad I did that. It's like you become a whole nother person.
Yes.
Because
I'd like to
weigh you down, it don't weigh you down anymore. Go ahead now.
I wanted to speak to something you said reminded me about some of our trauma. Some of us have experienced trauma in childhood. And part of the trauma work or healing work is also touching in with the inner child. And I say that because when we're in the space of actually feeling the things and healing through trauma, we have to address the inner child, and that can disrupt the thing that we called comfort, because we were comfortable in that space when we were coping and surviving. And now that that's not what we do anymore, it's a whole adjustment. Like our inner child, the coping mechanisms, the survival mechanisms that we adopted when we were children to survive they don't work anymore, number one. And so we have to put them away. Now we're left with, what am I supposed to do? Takes us to the tools that I listed earlier. But how do we know that they work? You know what I'm saying? Like when you're asking me, Miss Therapist, to take on these skills that I haven't practiced using. I know how to yell at people. I know how to cuss people. I know how to fight. That's what I know. So you're telling me now I got to write in a journal? You're telling me I got to breathe when that used to work a whole lot quicker than breathing. Yeah. So that's another adjustment. And it's very, like what you said, Cody, very, very uncomfortable. It's unsettling. It is unsettling, that internal, what is this? What am I doing? Where am I? Who am I? How do I approach? But you're right on it when you say it's a process. It takes time, but getting on the other side of it is so rewarding.
You said something earlier about again, it kind of speaks to the discomfort as it relates to trying to heal through your past trauma. And I think that it's important to, in your words, brain dump that information, because it's just like talking in a sense, right? Talk therapy is great. When you speak things out, you heal from it, right?
Yes.
So when you're writing in the actual journal, because I'm big on journaling. I'm big on journaling. I'm huge on that, which is why that was important for me to just kind of come back to, because again, just brain dumping. It's just like, I know some of you, or maybe it's just me. I'm gonna talk somebody's ear off when I'm going through it, right? I'm gonna talk. And you ain't gonna stop me from talking until you stop me from talking, right?
Okay.
But that's because, you deal with so much, and if you get that safe space that you can actually voice what you're going through, your brain just start throwing up. You're just throwing up. You're just going. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, your friends don't want to hear that, right? Your family members don't want to hear that, right? They may be going through something themselves, and what you're saying may be triggering them. That person that is your actual safe space become not your safe space, because they're not answering the phones for you. They're not returning your phone calls and text messages, because you're on this process of healing, so you want to speak everything. They ain't trying to hear that, because they're not on that process, right? They're not on that journey with you. So that's why it's very important for you to consider journaling, right? Get your journal. You want to, jot down your negative thoughts, your negative feelings, your negative emotions. But most importantly, as you're journaling, definitely dump it. Forget correct grammar. Forget spelling things correctly. You know what I'm saying? Forget even writing a certain amount. There's no certain amount. Just write. Just write. And as you write, you'll start to see how much is in your head. If you write a small paragraph, okay. But then when you start going to page 1, page 2, page 3, then you start realizing, okay, well, I got a lot going on that I need to discuss. Now, whether you look back at it or not, you might want to consider speaking to a professional who can help guide you through these negative thoughts and feelings and emotions, but also help you connect the dots.
Yes.
Right? So that these dots that are just all over the place can then become in a straight line.
Yes.
Once they become in a straight line, you can see the picture better. right?
Yes.
You follow what's going through, and you know what to fix, what not to fix, what to adjust, how to adjust.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And it's all come from writing. So journaling is very, very, very important. I highly recommend it.
Yes.
But that was a long segment on journaling, but it's very, very, very important to just journal. Speak
I
your mind
agree.
and express yourself. And again, that journal can become what you need everybody else to be. Because I know some people may get upset when that person who they thought was their safe space is not their safe space anymore. And you can't express yourself to them. You kind of start feeling a certain way, towards that person. But it's okay for you to feel a way, number one. But you gotta also give that person grace and understand that they may not be on that journey that you're on. So you need to talk to a professional. This person is not a professional. You understand what I'm saying? So take that into account as you're on this journey and you're trying to heal. It's best to deal with a professional. But if you're not there yet, definitely get you a book, a journal, write in it. And you can actually get some journals off adversityuonline.com. Shop. Yes, go get it.
There you go. Get you a journal from the Adversity University online shop. Absolutely. Absolutely. I often tell my clients when they are going to journal before they start the journaling, because journaling can bring up other stuff. It's a release. So like you remember that and then you remember that and you remember that and you're writing it out. I often tell them before they start the journaling, plan a fun activity to do once they close the book and write the pen. Once they wipe the tears, plan a date, plan for a glass of wine, just plan for something where you make a separation from the journaling, between the journaling and the next activity, where you're not spiraling as a result of the journaling, where you're not like mad or in a mood or have an attitude after the things that have come up. Sometimes it'll bring some things up. And then, like I said, plan something fun and just because also that activity mimics life. Yeah. We have ups and downs. When we have downs, it can be really, really bad, but typically there's going to be an up on the other side of that down. But when we have not been trained to recognize it, we just stay in the dark. And that's my goal in making that recommendation.
Absolutely. No, that was good stuff, man. So let's get to the importance of self-compassion and patience, right? On this healing process. And that's patience with yourself, and that's patience with everybody else around you.
Yes.
Again, this journey ain't easy. It's not.
Say it again. Say it again for the people in the back.
The journey is not easy.
It's not easy.
It's very difficult. However, you're strong enough to deal with it. You're strong enough to make it through.
Yes.
Right? It's all about endurance. If you can endure through the process, right? And I know everybody's strong enough to be able to go through it, but you just got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because healing comes from that uncomfortable space, right? So when we talk about the importance of self-compassion, and being patient in the healing process, you have to forgive yourself. Let me say that. It's because once you start to get into it, you start to peel back a lot of those layers, you then begin to realize a lot of your own shortcomings, right? You then begin to realize your fault in a lot of things, personally, professionally, and then if you're human, you'll start beating yourself up a little bit, all right? It's okay to go through that process. It's okay to identify and recognize some of your own fault. It's okay to, question some of your own past motives. But what's not okay is for you to beat yourself up and sit in that space. All right? When you're going through the healing process, there's going to be plenty of times that you feel like beating yourself up. Oh, man, I wish I wouldn't. Oh, man, I should have did that. Oh, man, why did I? Yeah, question those things so that you don't do it in the future, right? But don't question those things and you start sitting in the negative space and you feeling sorry for yourself and you don't know how to adjust from that. All right, that's not helpful, right? That's not fruitful. It's not going to benefit you or your family. What's going to benefit you and your family is to be compassionate, right? Give yourself grace. oh man, I did that, but I know better. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have did that. This is how I'm gonna handle that next time. Right? So we can have those negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but how we go reframe that? Reframe it. Just reframe it. Right? Yeah, I did this. I'll never do that again. If that situation never crossed my path, this is how I'm gonna handle that situation. I'm going to step 1, step 2, step 3. And that's how I'll never get back into that space. And see, now you have the knowledge and you have
I'm here.
I think the internet just went out. Did it go out?
Yeah, it froze. It froze.
Okay, but what I was saying about, step 1, step 2, and step 3, now you have the knowledge to be able to just move forward in a more productive manner as opposed to a disruptive manner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I like the way you said that, the reframing the action in the situation in a way that gives you hope and that empowers you and that opens up the pathway for the next steps towards your healing. And self-compassion will do that. And when we talk about self-compassion, you want to talk about also the compassion that you experience in your community. Because I want you to know, audience, ladies and gentlemen, that this whole healing from trauma is not in isolation. It's in community, right? Yes, you have a therapist, you have a support group, but the support group is your community. These are people that are healing with you and that you can see their compassion for you. And that can be, and the therapist's compassion for you, that can also be a reference point for what compassion looks like and feels like for yourself. When you actually can tell yourself that, yeah, I'm human and humans make mistakes. And there are no perfect humans and there are no 100% good people. Like we're good people, but we all have flaws. We all have thoughts that like, oh my gosh, did I really think that and why? It doesn't mean that anything other than just that. And being able to be okay with the parts of you that may not be desirable. That's also self-compassion. And I remember reading a definition of compassion. It's seeing that another person is going through something and being moved to make it better. So when we have self-compassion and we see ourselves going through something, we are moved to make it better for ourselves. So, and be okay, right? You're not going to see somebody on the side of the road, a child or something on the side of the road, and think, what you doing on the side of the road, beat them up for it when they're going through something for whatever reason. You're going to be moved to compassion. Where's your mom? Where's your dad? Let's go. Let me, like that. It's that moving towards, it's beyond pity. It's beyond sympathy for yourself and all the things, right? It's that action on the other side of feeling whatever it is about yourself. Does that make sense?
How did that person, that same person, then become patient with themselves and patient with everybody around them when they're going through this uncomfortable situation, this uncomfortable feeling, and they are oftentimes in that uncomfortable space? How do that person how does that person gain patience and become patient enough with themselves and everybody around them to get through the healing process?
It really is a practice. It really, really is practice. You start, hopefully you'll start in the support group or with your therapist. You start there. And, because oftentimes people don't just jump into therapy and start doing the work. And it's like, no, there's going to be times when you didn't do the work. You didn't do the homework. You didn't think a thing about what the therapist said the session before. And so when you come back to the session, you notice that, wait, she's not mad at me. She's not shaming me. She's not beating me up. She just, all right, we'll just go through this again. Let's have this discussion. And when I tell her something wild and she doesn't flinch, it's like, oh, I'm not as bad as I think I am. So it's that reference point. It's that example to start you off and to practice. Because, yeah, we're human. If you get nothing else from this talk, you are human. And it's okay, because all of us here on this side of existence are human. We all experience the same thing. Something that Brene Brown says that I often repeat in my mind. She says, we are inextricably connected. So it's all the same to some degree, right? Obviously, we're all different, but
Nah, good stuff. So, I mean, there you have it. You know, the path to healing, and I hope that you are on. Anybody that's listening, I hope that you are on your healing journey, your growth journey, right? It's all about how you're learning. It's all about personal growth. We got to educate ourselves in order to be better.
yes,
Right? So in order to see better, we have to be better. Actions
Yes.
speak louder than the word. Don't just talk about it, be about it.
that's right.
You know, so now I think we gave him something good. That was definitely good.
I think so too. Thank you.
You know, and I believe that, you know, some people can actually be moved from it. I know I can. I can learn a lot from it, right? Whether it's coming out of my mouth or yours, these things that we receive, we have to be able to apply.
Right.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the art of growing through trauma, the path to healing. Make sure you tune in. Please subscribe if you're on YouTube. Like, comment, and share with anybody. Tag any and everybody that you know. Tell a friend and tell a friend and tell 10 more friends. We're here to stay. We ain't going nowhere.
That's right.
University is a mental health and educational life skill. Mental health and life skill education platform for personal growth and guidance with a mission to enhance everyone's lives.
That's right.
Personal growth, mental health, and emotional intelligence. So make sure you tune in. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I can't say that enough. We have plenty of shows that's going to be coming through that channel, and we look to give y'all more. Add some, you know, additional dope people to the fold, and just give you more. Again, if you have any questions that you want to know, any answers that you need, put the questions in the comment. We will check those and get right back to you. Whether it's in the form of a course, whether it's in the form of a video, whether it's in the form of a live, whether it's in the form of any type of angle, we got you. All right? And I don't just say that, I mean it.
Right.
All right? So again, like I always say, knowledge is power, and share knowledge is more powerful. Perseverance is the key to overcoming all adversity. So never
That's
give
right.
up.
That's
When
right.
life throws at you, keep your feet moving, focus on the solution, and let success be the goal. Cody and Natalie, we'll holler at you.
Bye.
When perseverance meet adversity, then success is right around the corner. You just gotta be willing to keep going. This is Adversity University. What's your plan? You gonna keep your feet planted, or you gonna keep your feet moving? And success is the next step. Now what you gonna do? Adversity